The apology came without witnesses. No council members flanking him. No guards stationed outside. No pack gathering to measure his humility or her response. Just Aiden standing in the doorway of the healing house at midnight, watching Ella tend to a patient who'd arrived with fever burns from dark magic exposure. She knew he was there. Her moon-marked senses had detected him the moment he'd left the manor, had tracked his approach through the capital streets, had felt the weight of what he was carrying, guilt, fear, desperate hope, like a physical thing pressing against her awareness. But she didn't acknowledge him, just continued her work, hands glowing with silver light as she drew the toxic magic out of the young wolf's system. Patient, methodical, focused entirely on healing instead of the man who'd once been her entire world. 5 years since the truth came out. 5 years since they'd rebuilt their relationship into something functional. 5 years of co-parenting Luna and Ash. 5 years of leading the pack together. 5 years of careful partnership that looked like reconciliation from the outside, but felt like elaborate performance from within. Because the truth, the one Ella had never spoken aloud, the one she'd buried beneath duty and motherhood and the exhausting work of reformation, was this: she'd never actually forgiven him. She'd moved forward, built a life alongside the wound, chosen partnership over isolation. But forgiveness? Real, deep, fundamental forgiveness that erased the betrayal and made them whole again? That had never happened. And Aiden, standing in that doorway at midnight, having finally gathered the courage to face what they'd both been avoiding, he was about to learn exactly how deep that unhealed wound went. Ella finished with her patient, the fever broken, the dark magic neutralized, the young wolf sleeping peacefully. She cleaned her hands with practiced efficiency, made notes in the healing records, checked the other overnight patients to ensure they were stable, all while Aiden stood in that doorway, waiting, not commanding her attention, not pulling rank, just waiting. Finally, when there were no more tasks to occupy her, no more reasons to delay, she turned to face him. "The children are asleep," she said, her voice professionally neutral. Luna had nightmares again. Something about the Southern Territories. I think she's picking up on the tension from the border disputes. I'll talk to her tomorrow. See if we can work on shielding her empathic senses. His response was automatic. The script they'd perfected over 5 years of co-parenting. Good. Silence. Heavy. Charged with everything they never said. Ella. His voice cracked slightly on her name. Can we talk? Really talk? Not about the children or pack business or any of the things we used to avoid, he stopped. Can we talk about us? There is no us, Aiden. There's co-parents, co-leaders, partners in reformation. But us, she shook her head. That died in the cell. You just never acknowledged the funeral. The words were precise, surgical, designed to cut. They landed exactly as intended. Aiden's expression crumpled for just a moment before he caught himself. Can I come in? Please? Just 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. Ella considered refusing. Considered telling him to leave and take his guilt with him. Considered protecting herself the way she learned to over 5 years of careful distance. Instead, she gestured to the small office attached to the healing house. Private. Quiet. A space where whatever he needed to say wouldn't disturb the sleeping patients. He followed her inside. She closed the door. And for the first time in 5 years, they were truly alone. No children as buffer. No council business as excuse. Just 2 wolves and the chasm between them. Say what you came to say, Ella said, leaning against her desk. Not sitting. Not making this comfortable. Aiden took a breath. Then another. Like a man preparing to jump from a cliff. I failed you. The words came out raw, unvarnished. Not just by enforcing the punishment, though gods know that was unforgivable, but by everything that came after. By thinking anonymous food deliveries and distant protection were enough. By not demanding a deeper investigation immediately. By choosing the system over you. Over and over. Every single time it mattered. Ella's expression didn't change. She'd heard apologies before. 5 years of them. Delivered at significant moments. Birthdays. Anniversaries of traumatic events. Quiet nights when guilt got too heavy to carry alone. But this was different. She could feel it in the way his voice shook. The way he didn't hide behind alpha authority or political necessity. I was a coward, Aiden continued. I told myself I was being strategic. That protecting my authority meant I could do more good long term. That sacrifice my personal feelings was what leaders did. But the truth, his voice broke completely. The truth is I was afraid. Afraid of questioning the system I'd been raised in. Afraid of admitting the council I trusted was corrupt. Afraid of facing that I'd destroyed an innocent woman because I valued order over truth. Are you finished? Ella's question was cold. No, he stepped closer. Not touching. Just closer. I need you to understand something. The punishment broke you. I know that. I watched it happen. Watched you retreat into yourself. Watched the light go out of your eyes. But what I didn't realize, what I was too selfish to see, is that the punishment wasn't what destroyed your trust. My silence afterward was. Ella went very still. You could have survived the whip, Aiden said. You could have survived the exile. You'd already survived the cell. You were strong enough for all of it. But what you couldn't survive, what no one could survive, was the person who claimed to love you choosing the pack's comfort over your dignity. Over and over. For 6 weeks. For months. He stopped. For 5 years, if I'm being honest. Don't. The word came out sharper than Ella intended. Don't pretend you understand what I survived. What I'm still surviving. You're right. I don't understand. Can't understand. Because I was the weapon. I was the thing that destroyed you. And no amount of reformation or reconciliation or co-parenting changes that fundamental fact. He took another step closer. But I need you to know I see it now. See what my silence cost. See that rebuilding the pack wasn't enough. That being a good father wasn't enough. That standing beside you in leadership wasn't enough. Because none of it addressed the core betrayal, that I valued my crown over your humanity. Ella's hands clenched on the edge of the desk. Why now? Why are you saying this now? We've been functioning for 5 years. Building a life. Raising children. Leading together. Why disrupt that now? Because it's not real, Aiden said simply. We're not real. We're a performance. A carefully constructed partnership that looks like reconciliation, but feels like, he gestured helplessly. Like strangers who share a bed occasionally and pretend that's intimacy. And whose fault is that? Mine. Completely mine. I'm the one who broke us. I'm the one who destroyed your ability to trust. I'm the one who made intimacy impossible by proving I'd choose duty over you when it mattered. His voice dropped to barely above a whisper. But Ella, I can't keep living like this. Can't keep pretending that functional partnership is enough. Can't keep watching you give me your body occasionally while keeping your heart locked away where I can never reach it. Then leave. Her voice was ice. If it's not enough for you, leave. Find some other wolf who can give you the unconditional forgiveness you think you deserve. Who can forget what you did and love you without reservation. But that wolf isn't me. Will never be me. Because I remember everything. I don't want anyone else. I want you. The real you. The one who's buried beneath 5 years of careful control. The one who's still bleeding from wounds I inflicted. He stopped. I want the right to earn your forgiveness. Real forgiveness. Not the performance we've been maintaining. You don't get to ask for that. Ella's composure finally cracked. You don't get to decide you're ready for emotional intimacy after 5 years of me protecting myself. You don't get to demand access to my pain just because you've finally processed your guilt. That's not how this works. Then tell me how it works. Tell me what you need. What would make this, us, real again? The question hung in the air. Genuine. Desperate. Impossible to answer. Because Ella didn't know. Hadn't let herself think about it. Had spent 5 years focused on survival, on raising children and leading a pack and spreading reformation, specifically so she wouldn't have to examine what she needed from the man who destroyed her. She stopped. Started again. I need you to understand that some wounds don't heal. That forgiveness isn't something you earn through good behavior or reformed leadership or being a decent co-parent. It's something that either happens or doesn't. And it hasn't. Not really. I've moved forward. Built a life around the wound. But the wound itself, her voice shook. The wound is still there. Still bleeding. Still defining everything even when I pretend it doesn't. So what do? I don't know. The admission cost her. I don't know if there's anything we can do. Maybe this careful partnership, maybe it's the best we get. Maybe some betrayals are too fundamental to overcome. Maybe a sound in the hallway interrupted her. Footsteps. Multiple sets. Moving fast. Both of them tensed immediately. Ella reached for her power. Aiden shifted toward the door, alpha instincts taking over. The door burst open without knocking. Liam stood there, his expression grim. Behind him, 3 council members. And behind them, Ella's breath caught. A wolf she'd never seen before. Tall. Powerful. With silver eyes that marked him as unmistakably Moonmarked. But more than that, he carried himself with alpha authority. Not Aiden's careful, reformed leadership, but old-style alpha dominance. The kind that demanded submission through presence alone. Your Majesty, Liam said, his tone apologetic. Forgive the interruption, but we have a situation. Alpha Stellan from the Eastern Territories has arrived. Unannounced. Uninvited. And he's demanding to speak with Queen Ella. Specifically. Privately. Stellan. The name rang familiar. One of the 12 traditionalist pacts that had sent observers to the summit. One that hadn't committed to reformation, but hadn't condemned it either. And he was Moonmarked. Openly. In a traditionalist pack. On what grounds? Aiden demanded, his voice dropping into alpha command. Stellan stepped forward, his silver eyes fixed on Ella. On the grounds that I have information about the conspiracy that destroyed her. Information that hasn't been made public. Information that, he paused deliberately, that implicates wolves currently in positions of power in this pack. The words were a bomb. Carefully placed. Devastating. What wolves? Ella asked, finding her voice. That's what I need to discuss. Privately. With you. Stellan's gaze didn't waver from hers. Because what I know, it changes everything you think you understand about why you were targeted. And it implicates people you trust. People who've been part of your reformation from the beginning. Aiden stepped between them. If you have information relevant to past crimes, you present it to both of us. To the council. Not in private meetings that undermine established authority. Respectfully, Alpha King, Stellan's smile was cold. This information is for Queen Ella alone. Because it concerns decisions you made. Actions you took. Things you've hidden from her for 5 years while pretending you've told her everything. The accusation landed like a physical blow. Ella looked at Aiden. Saw something flicker in his expression. Guilt. Fear. Confirmation. What is he talking about? Her voice was deadly quiet. Ella, what is he talking about? Aiden's silence was answer enough. Stellan's smile widened. Ask your maid about the second conspiracy. The one that happened after the first was exposed. The one that's been operating for 5 years while you've been focused on reformation. Ask him who really benefits from keeping you focused on pack leadership instead of asking deeper questions about what was done to you. That's enough, Aiden commanded. You will leave. No, I'll decide what's enough. Ella's power flared, silver light filling the small office. She looked at Stellan. You have information. Present it. Now. In front of everyone. No private meetings. No hidden truths. Everything public. Everything transparent. That's how reformation works. As you wish. Stellan pulled a folder from his coat, opened it, and began reading names. Council members. Guards. Wolves Ella had trusted for 5 years. Wolves who'd been part of the Reformation from the beginning. Wolves who'd stood beside her and Aiden and helped build everything they'd accomplished. All implicated in a secondary conspiracy. One that had been operating beneath the surface. One that had been using Reformation as cover for continued manipulation. And at the center of the list, one name that made Ella's blood run cold. Liam. Aiden's beta. His best friend. The wolf who'd helped expose the original conspiracy. Who'd stood with them through everything. Who'd been there when Luna and Ash were born. Who'd helped implement every reform. Who'd been trusted completely. No, Ella breathed. That's not possible. Liam helped us. He helped you believe you understood what happened, Stellan interrupted. Helped you focus on the obvious conspirators while deeper manipulations continued. Helped ensure you never asked certain questions. Never examined certain evidence. Never realized that exposing Marcus and his council was exactly what the real power wanted. Because it removed obstacles and made you grateful. Made you trust without verifying. Made you vulnerable. Ella looked at Liam. At the beta who'd been Aiden's closest friend since childhood. Who'd delivered her twins when the healers were overwhelmed. Who'd held Luna while Ella fought for Ash's life. And she saw it in his expression. Guilt. Is it true? She asked quietly. Liam didn't answer. Couldn't answer. Just stood there with truth written across his face. Oh gods, Ella whispered. It's true. And suddenly, the careful partnership she'd built with Aiden, the functional relationship that had sustained them for 5 years, it crumbled. Because if Liam had been part of a conspiracy, if there had been deeper manipulation happening all along, if Aiden had known or suspected and said nothing, then everything was a lie. Still, after 5 years of supposed honesty, after 5 years of reformation and transparency and choosing truth over comfort, it was all still a lie. Ella looked at Aiden. Did you know? He stopped. I suspected. But I couldn't prove, did you? No. Yes. The admission came out broken. I knew. For the past year. I've been investigating quietly. Trying to gather evidence without tipping off whoever was involved. Trying to protect you from stop. Her voice was razor sharp. Stop talking. Stop explaining. Stop trying to justify why you hid this from me. She turned to Stellan. Your information. All of it. Present it formally to the full council tomorrow. Every name. Every connection. Every piece of evidence. We're going to expose this publicly. Completely. The way we should have done the first time instead of trusting that removing Marcus was enough. And tonight? Stellan asked. Tonight, you're confined to guest quarters under guard. Until we verify your information and your motives. She looked at Liam. And you're suspended from all duties pending investigation. If what Stellan says is true, if you've been part of another conspiracy, you'll face justice. Real justice. Public and complete. Ella, please, Liam started. Don't. She couldn't look at him. Couldn't look at Aiden. Couldn't look at any of them without feeling the betrayal all over again. Just don't. She walked out of the office. Out of the healing house. into the night air that suddenly felt too thin to breathe. Behind her, she heard Aiden calling her name. Heard him trying to follow. She didn't turn around. Didn't acknowledge him. Just kept walking. Because 5 years ago, she'd chosen to move forward. To build a life around the wound. To partner with a man who destroyed her because their children needed both parents and the pack needed stable leadership. But tonight she learned that even that carefully constructed partnership was built on lies. That even after everything, Aiden was still choosing secrets over truth. Still protecting her from information instead of trusting her with it. Still treating her like something too fragile to handle reality. And she was done. Completely done. With lies. With secrets. With pretending that functional partnership was enough. She'd survived the first betrayal. Built herself back from complete destruction. But this revelation that even their hard-won reconciliation was contaminated by hidden truths, she wasn't sure she could survive this one. Ella didn't go back to the manor. She couldn't. The thought of walking into the Alpha's quarters, the space she'd shared with Aiden for 5 years, the bed where they'd rebuilt physical intimacy while emotional intimacy remained fractured, it made her skin crawl. Instead, she went to the one place that had always been hers alone, the temple in the northern forest. The same temple where the moon's spirits had appeared. Where she'd first claimed her moon-marked power. Where she'd made the choice to stand instead of run. Where everything had changed the first time. Maybe it could change her again. Give her clarity. Direction. Something. She arrived just as dawn broke, silver light filtering through the ancient trees. The altar still stood in the center of the clearing, moss-covered but intact. Waiting. Ella collapsed against it, finally letting the composure she'd maintained crack completely. "I don't know what to do," she said to the empty air. To the spirits who might or might not be listening. To herself. I thought I'd made peace with it. With what he did. With moving forward. But it was all built on the belief that he'd changed. That he'd learned. That 5 years of transparency meant something. The altar was silent. Cold beneath her hands. And now I find out he's been keeping secrets. Again. Still. After everything. After I explicitly told him honesty was the only thing I required. After we rebuilt everything on the foundation of truth. Her voice broke. How many more lies? How many more layers of manipulation? When does it end? When you demand it ends. Ella spun around. A woman stood at the edge of the clearing, not a moon spirit, but flesh and blood. Older. Weathered. With silver eyes that marked her as moon-marked and scars that spoke of a life spent surviving. "Who are you?" Ella demanded, power flickering to life around her hands. "My name is Saris. I'm Alpha Stellan's sister. And I'm here because he asked me to find you. To give you context before tomorrow's council meeting." The woman moved closer, her movements careful. Non-threatening. "May I sit?" Ella gestured to the altar steps. Wary but curious. Saris settled with a sigh. "My brother is many things. Ambitious. Calculating. Sometimes too clever for his own good. But he's not lying about the conspiracy. About Liam and the others." "I know because," she paused. "Because I was part of the original investigation team that your mate hired. The one that was supposed to expose everyone involved in your torture." Aiden hired investigators? A year ago. When he started suspecting that removing Marcus wasn't enough. That deeper rot remained. Saris pulled a worn journal from her coat. "This contains everything we found. Names. Connections. Evidence. And she stopped. It's bad, Ella. Worse than you think. Tell me. Are you sure? Because once you understand the full scope, there's no going back. No pretending ignorance. No protecting yourself from the truth. I'm tired of being protected from truth. Just tell me. Saris opened the journal. The original conspiracy, Marcus and his council, they were real. Everything you know about that is accurate. They did target you, did fabricate evidence, did torture you. But they weren't the architects. They were tools, used by someone with more power, more patience, more long-term vision. Who? A coalition. Wolves from multiple packs who saw Reformation coming and wanted to control it, shape it, ensure it served their interests instead of threatening them. Saris turned pages, showing names and connections. They needed reformation to happen. Traditional systems were failing. Younger wolves were demanding change. But they needed it to happen in a way that kept real power in traditional hands. So they what? Orchestrated my torture to create a sympathetic figure? To make reformation seem necessary. Partially. But more than that, they needed you specifically. A moonmarked wolf who'd survived systematic abuse. Who could become the face of reformation while they operated in the shadows? Who would be so focused on building new systems that you'd never examine the old power structures that remained intact beneath the surface? The calculation of it made Ella's stomach turn. And Liam was recruited after the first conspiracy was exposed. They approached him when he was vulnerable, when he was processing guilt over not stopping your torture sooner, when he was desperate to help fix things. They convinced him that protecting you meant hiding certain truths, that some information would traumatize you unnecessarily. That gradual revelation was kinder than complete transparency. He believed that. He wanted to believe it. Because the alternative, that he was enabling another conspiracy, was too painful to acknowledge. So he convinced himself he was protecting you. Being a good friend. Serving the greater good. Saris's expression was sad. That's how these things work. They don't recruit villains. They recruit good people and convince them that small compromises serve noble purposes. Ella stared at the journal. At the evidence of manipulation that had lasted 5 years. That had shaped her entire recovery. What else? What other truths has he been hiding? The assassination attempt. Margaret and her wolves. Your mate's investigation found evidence that they had inside help. Someone told them exactly when security would be lightest, where the children slept, how to bypass wards. Saris met Ella's eyes. Liam provided that information. Not intentionally, or so he claims. But he mentioned details in a conversation that was overheard. Details that were used. He almost got my children killed. The words came out flat, emotionless. Because if Ella let herself feel the rage beneath them, she'd lose control completely. He didn't know his words would be used that way. Didn't realize who was listening. But yes, his carelessness endangered them. And he's been living with that guilt for 3 years. Which is probably why he's remained complicit. Too afraid to confess. Too deep to extract himself. And Aiden knew. For a year. Has been investigating. Has been gathering evidence. And said nothing. He was trying to protect you. Stop. Ella's power flared, silver light filling the clearing. Everyone keeps saying that. Protecting you. Serving the greater good. Waiting for the right time. But what they mean is, we didn't trust you with the truth. Didn't believe you could handle it. Didn't think you deserved to make your own choices about your own life. Saris was quiet for a moment. Then, you're right. And your mate knows you're right. That's why he was trying to apologize tonight. Why he was finally ready to confess everything. But my brother, she shook her head. Stellan has his own agenda. He didn't reveal this information out of altruism. He wants something from you. What? Alliance. Your Reformation model threatens traditional power structures across the region. But it also creates opportunities. Pacts that successfully reform gain influence, prestige, authority in the new order being built. Stellan wants the Eastern Territories to be part of that. But more than that, Saris hesitated. He wants you specifically. As political ally. As symbol. As his mate. Ella finished coldly. He wants to replace Aiden? He wants to offer you a choice. Something you've never really had. Your relationship with Aiden, it was forged in crisis. Built on necessity. Maintained through children and duty and the exhausting work of reformation. But what if you could choose freely? What if you could partner with someone who saw your power as strength instead of complication? Who believed you from the start instead of requiring proof? Stellan doesn't know me. No, but he knows what you represent. And he's offering something your mate never did, unconditional support. No guilt. No hidden investigations. No protecting you from truths he thinks you can't handle. Saris closed the journal. I'm not saying you should accept. I'm saying you deserve to know the offer exists. That there are alternatives to the partnership you've been maintaining. The words settled over Ella like a weight. Because Saris was right, she'd never really chosen Aiden. Not freely. Their relationship had been born from crisis and maintained through obligation. And even when she decided to really try 3 years ago, it had been a choice made within constraints. Made for the children. For the pack. For reformation. But never purely for herself. Why are you telling me this? Ella asked. Why help your brother's agenda? Because I'm Moonmarked too. And I spent 40 years hiding it. Suppressing my power. Living as half of what I could be because I was afraid. Then I watched you claim your power openly, raise Moonmarked children without shame, build a reformation that protected wolves like us. And I thought, her voice roughened. I thought maybe it's not too late. Maybe I can still live fully. Be fully. Exist without apologizing for what I am. So you want me to succeed? To keep building reformation? I want you to survive, Saris corrected. Because right now, you're drowning. Maintaining a partnership that requires you to constantly diminish yourself. Pretending functional co-parenting is enough. Accepting secrets and protection instead of demanding truth and respect. And if you keep doing that, if you keep choosing duty over your own needs, you'll eventually break. Completely. In a way even your power can't fix. The accuracy of it stole Ella's breath. What would you do? Ella asked quietly. In my position? With my choices. Saris smiled sadly. I'd ask myself, what do I actually want? Not what the children need. Not what the pack requires. Not what serves reformation. Just, what do I, Ella, Moonmarked queen and survivor of systematic torture, what do I want from the rest of my life? I don't know. Then maybe it's time to figure it out. Before you make any more choices based on what everyone else needs from you. Ella returned to the capital as the council was convening for emergency session. She'd been gone for 6 hours. Long enough for rumors to spread. For wolves to whisper about the queen's absence. For Aiden to work himself into visible panic. He met her at the manor entrance, relief and fear warring on his face. Ella, thank gods. He stopped. Are you all right? No, her response was flat. I'm not all right, but we have a council meeting. So I'm functional. That's what you need, right? Functional. The barb landed. She watched him flinch. That's not I don't need you functional. I need you safe. I need to know what you need, Ella interrupted, is to present evidence at this council meeting. To expose Liam and anyone else involved. To finally, actually, completely tell the truth. Can you do that? Or are there more secrets you're protecting me from? Ella, please. Let me explain. You can explain at the meeting. Publicly. Completely. Where everyone can hear. She moved past him toward the council chambers. That's how reformation works, remember? Transparency. Accountability. Truth. Or have you forgotten while you were conducting secret investigations? She left him standing in the entryway, his expression devastated. And she felt nothing. Just cold. Numb. Protected by the same walls she'd built 5 years ago and never fully dismantled despite her best efforts. The council chamber was packed. All 15 council members. Guards at every entrance. And in the center, under heavy guard, Stellan and Liam. Stellan looked calm, almost amused, like someone watching a play he'd written himself. Liam looked destroyed, aged a decade since last night, guilt and fear written across every line of his face. Ella took her seat at the council table, the position she'd held for 5 years as queen and co-leader. Aiden sat beside her, close enough to maintain the appearance of unified leadership, but with palpable distance between them. This council is called to order, Ivy announced. As the youngest council member, she'd become skilled at managing these sessions. We're here to examine evidence presented by Alpha Stellan regarding an alleged secondary conspiracy. Alpha Stellan, you may present your findings. Stellan stood, pulled out the same type of folder Saris had shown Ella, and began methodically dismantling 5 years of careful reformation. He presented names, connections, evidence of wolves who'd been manipulating from the shadows, using reformation as cover for continued control, ensuring that while systems changed, real power remained with traditional hierarchies. Some names were expected. Council members who'd been less enthusiastic about change. Guards who'd been slow to implement new protocols. Wolves who'd resisted but complied. But others, Haley, the young wolf who'd changed her vote 5 years ago. Who'd been instrumental in Reformation's success. Who'd confessed to staying silent during Ella's original trial. Apparently, that guilt had been weaponized. She'd been recruited to shape Reformation from within, to ensure certain questions were never asked, certain evidence never examined. Nathan, the older wolf who'd lost his son and supported Reformation vocally. He'd been feeding information to Traditionalist packs. Not sabotage exactly, just ensuring they knew what was coming, could prepare, could adapt without fully submitting to change. And Liam, God's Liam. The evidence against him was extensive. 5 years of small compromises, small secrets, small manipulations that added up to systematic betrayal of everything Reformation stood for. He was trying to protect the Queen, Stellan said, his tone mockingly sympathetic. Trying to spare her from traumatic truths. Trying to shield her from information that might destabilize her recovery. At least, that's what they told him. What they convinced him to believe. In reality, he was just another tool. Used to keep Queen Ella focused on visible enemies while real power operated invisibly. The council erupted. Shouts of disbelief. Demands for evidence. Calls for immediate judgment. Through it all, Ella sat silent. Watching. Absorbing. Feeling the careful world she'd built crack and splinter around her. Finally, Ivy called for order. These are serious accusations. Beta Liam, how do you answer? Liam stood slowly. He didn't look at Aiden. Didn't look at the council. Just looked at Ella. Everything Alpha Stellan said is true. I was recruited. I was manipulated. I enabled continued conspiracy while convincing myself I was protecting the Queen. His voice was hollow. And I have no defense except that I was weak. Too guilty about my initial silence to resist when they offered me a chance to make things right. Too afraid of losing everything if I confessed. The assassination attempt, Ella said quietly. Her first words since the meeting began. You provided information. Accidentally. That was used to target my children. Yes. Liam's voice broke completely. I mentioned security details in a conversation I thought was private. Didn't realize who was listening. Didn't know it would be used. But that doesn't matter. My carelessness endangered Luna and Ash. And I've been too cowardly to confess since. You've been my mate's closest friend since childhood, Ella continued, her tone eerily calm. You delivered my children. You helped build Reformation. You stood with us through everything. And all of it, was contaminated by lies. Not all of it. Liam finally met her eyes. My support for Reformation was genuine. My love for your children is genuine. My respect for what you've built, he stopped. But yes, I lied, hid truths, enabled manipulation. And I'm sorry. More sorry than I can express. But sorry isn't enough. I know that. No, Ella agreed. It's not. She turned to Aiden. And you. You knew. For a year. You've been investigating. Gathering evidence. And you said nothing. Nothing to me. Nothing to the council. Just conducted secret inquiries while pretending everything was transparent. Aiden stood. I was trying to finish that sentence, Ella interrupted, her voice dangerous. Say you were trying to protect me. Say it out loud so everyone can hear how you still don't understand. Still don't trust me with truth. Still think I'm too fragile to handle reality. That's not, then what is it? Explain. In front of everyone. Why you kept this secret. Why you continued hiding truths after explicitly promising complete honesty. Why you decided, once again, that your judgment mattered more than my right to make informed choices. The silence was suffocating. Every eye in the chamber was on Aiden. Waiting. Watching their alpha king struggle to justify the unjustifiable. I was afraid, Aiden finally admitted. Afraid that if you learned that even our reconciliation was compromised by continued manipulation, you'd break. Completely. In a way I couldn't help you recover from. He stopped. So I chose to carry the burden alone. To investigate quietly. To spare you the knowledge until I could present solutions instead of just problems. You chose to treat me like a child, Ella corrected. Like someone who needed protection from difficult truths instead of a partner who deserved complete honesty. And in doing so, you proved that nothing has changed. You still value your judgment over my autonomy. Still believe you know better. Still think duty justifies deception. That's not, I was trying to stop. Ella stood. Power radiated from her invisible waves now, silver light filling the chamber. Just stop. Stop explaining. Stop justifying. Stop trying to make this about noble intentions when it's actually about fundamental disrespect. About your continued inability to trust me with truth. About your persistent belief that protecting me matters more than being honest with me. She looked at the assembled council. At Ivy and the other young reformers who'd built this movement believing in transparency. At the traditionalists who'd slowly come to accept change. At everyone who'd trusted that Reformation meant something. I'm stepping down as queen. The announcement hit like an explosion. Aiden went white. Ella, no, I'm stepping down, she repeated. Effective immediately. Not from Reformation leadership. Not from Moonmarked advocacy. But from partnership with an alpha king who still believes secrets serve love. From a position that requires me to constantly diminish myself. From a role that was never freely chosen, but maintained through obligation and guilt. The children Aiden started will be co-parented. Exactly as we've been doing. Nothing changes there. Luna and Ash need both parents. I would never take that from them or from you. But our partnership, our supposed reconciliation, she laughed bitterly. That ends. Officially. Publicly. Completely. You can't, I can. I am. She pulled off the queen's circlet, the crown she'd worn for 5 years. Set it on the council table. I'm done pretending functional partnership is enough. Done accepting half-truths and careful omissions. Done diminishing myself to maintain a relationship built on crisis instead of choice. Ella, please. Aiden's voice broke completely. Don't do this. We can fix this. We can fix it how? Her question was quiet, but devastating. By you promising to be honest this time? By me believing you this time? By both of us pretending that 5 years of continued deception doesn't fundamentally undermine everything we built. She shook her head. I can't keep doing this. Can't keep choosing a partnership that requires me to accept less than I deserve. Can't keep teaching my children that love means tolerating betrayal. She turned to leave. To walk away from the council chamber and the crown and the carefully constructed life she'd been maintaining. Alpha Stellan stood. Queen Ella. Before you go, I'd like to make a formal offer. Everyone turned to stare at him. An offer? Ella asked warily. Alliance. Between your Reformation movement and the Eastern Territories. A partnership built on mutual respect and complete transparency. One that recognizes your autonomy, your authority, your right to truth without protection. He met her eyes. And if you're interested eventually, perhaps something more personal. But only if you choose. Freely. Without obligation or crisis forcing the decision. The offer hung in the air. Impossible to ignore. Aiden's expression went from devastated to murderous. I dare offer the queen what you failed to provide, unconditional respect. Trust. Honesty. Stellan's smile was cold. You had 5 years to prove you'd changed. To demonstrate that you valued her autonomy. And you failed. Repeatedly. So yes, I dare offer an alternative. Ella. Aiden turned to her, desperation evident. Don't let him manipulate you. Don't make decisions based on what? Ella interrupted. Based on being angry? Based on feeling betrayed? Based on wanting something different than what I've been accepting? She looked at him. Really looked at him. At the man she'd loved and lost and tried to rebuild with. You want to know what manipulation looks like, Aiden? It's telling someone you trust them while conducting secret investigations. It's promising transparency while hiding truths. It's claiming to have changed while repeating the same fundamental betrayals. She turned back to Stellan. I'll consider your offer. After I've had time to process. To understand the full scope of what's been hidden. To decide what I actually want instead of just accepting what's been offered. That's all I ask. Stellan inclined his head. Take all the time you need. Ella walked out of the council chamber. Out of the manor. Into the late afternoon sun that suddenly felt like freedom instead of exposure. Behind her, she heard chaos. Aiden shouting. Council members arguing. The careful order of Reformation splintering. And she felt relief. Devastating, terrifying, exhilarating relief. Because for the first time in 5 years, she'd chosen herself. Her needs. Her truth. Her autonomy. Even if it meant walking away from everything she'd built. Even if it meant starting over. Even if it meant admitting that maybe, just maybe, some wounds were too deep to heal. And some partnerships were too broken to save. Do you see what just happened? Ella didn't choose another mate. Didn't immediately accept Stellan's offer. She chose herself. Chose to stop accepting less than she deserves. Chose to walk away from a partnership built on obligation instead of genuine choice. And Aiden, he's learning the hardest lesson. That good intentions don't excuse betrayal. That protecting someone by hiding truth is just another form of control. That you can't fix a relationship by repeating the same fundamental mistakes. Ella moved into the temple. Not permanently. Not dramatically. Just temporarily. A space to think without the weight of the manor, the children's needs, the pack's expectations pressing down on her every moment. Luna and Ash visited daily. Aiden brought them himself, never pushing for conversation, never demanding access. Just delivering their children and leaving. Respecting the boundary she'd drawn even though it was clearly killing him. The pack was in chaos. Half supported Ella's decision, saw it as her finally choosing herself, finally demanding the respect she deserved. The other half saw it as abandonment, the queen walking away from duty, destabilizing leadership during a crisis, putting personal feelings over pack welfare. The arguments raged in council meetings Ella no longer attended, in public forums that continued without her, in private conversations that she heard about secondhand through Ivy and the other young reformers who still sought her guidance. But Ella stayed away, stayed in the temple, processing, thinking, trying to understand what she actually wanted instead of just reacting to what had been done to her. It was on the 5th day that everything changed. She was meditating at the altar, trying to quiet the chaos in her mind, trying to access the clarity her Moonmarked power sometimes provided when she felt it. A disturbance. Not physical, emotional. A spike of fear and pain that hit her awareness like a blow. Luna. Something was wrong with Luna. Ella was moving before conscious thought engaged. Running through the forest. Across pack territory. Following the thread of her daughter's terror like a beacon. She found them at the training grounds. A crowd had gathered, wolves standing in a circle, some shouting, others silent with shock. And in the center, Luna. 7 years old. Small for her age despite her alpha strength. Standing over another child, a boy maybe a year older, with her hands glowing gold-silver light. Power radiating from her in waves that made the nearby wolves stumble back. Luna. Ella pushed through the crowd. Luna, stop. Whatever's happening, stop. Her daughter turned. Her eyes, usually her father's warm gold shot through with Ella's silver, they were completely silver now. Moonmarked power fully activated. And on her face, rage. Pure, incandescent rage mixed with terror. He heard Ash, Luna said, her voice distorted by power. He said Ash was weak. Said Moonmarked wolves shouldn't exist. Said, her voice broke. Said horrible things. So I'm going to make him stop. Forever. The boy on the ground was whimpering. Bleeding from multiple wounds. Not dying, not yet, but hurt badly. And Luna's power was building. Preparing to do something permanent. Luna, no. Ella dropped to her knees beside her daughter. Whatever he said, whatever he did, this isn't the answer. You can't hurt people for words. Can't use your power like this. Why not? Luna's silver eyes blazed. They hurt you for nothing. They hurt Ash every time they whisper. They hurt all of us by existing while hating what we are. Why should we let them? The question, the terrible, logical question that Ella herself had asked in her darkest moments, it hung in the air like poison. Because we're better than that, Ella said softly. Because using power to hurt people who hurt us, that makes us the monsters they fear. That proves them right. I don't care about proving them wrong. I care about protecting Ash. About making them stop. Luna's power surged. You taught me to stand up. To fight. To never let them make me small. So I'm fighting. Fighting doesn't mean killing, baby. Doesn't mean becoming the threat they accuse us of being. Ella reached out carefully, her own Moonmarked power extending. Not to restrain. To connect. I know you're angry. Know you're scared for your brother. But this isn't who you are. This isn't who we are. Then who are we? Luna's voice was small suddenly. Childlike. Because everyone says we're dangerous. Everyone looks at us like we're going to explode. And I'm tired of being careful. Tired of being good. Tired of proving we're not monsters when they're never going to believe it anyway. The pain in her daughter's voice broke Ella's heart. Because Luna was right, they would always be feared. Always be watched. Always have to prove their control while others could lose control without consequence. We're wolves who choose, Ella said. Who choose every day to use our power for good even when it would be easier to use it for revenge. Who choose to protect even when we want to destroy. Who choose to be better than our worst impulses. She cupped Luna's face. And right now, you need to choose. To let this boy go. to step back from the edge, to trust that there are consequences for his words that don't require you to become what he accused you of being. But he hurt Ash, and he'll face justice for that. Real justice. Through proper channels. Not through your rage. Ella's voice strengthened. You are Luna, daughter of Reformation, future leader, Moonmarked warrior with alpha blood. And you are not defined by this boy's fear or cruelty. You are defined by your choices. So choose, baby. Choose who you want to be. For a long moment, Luna stood frozen, power crackling around her, the boy's life hanging in the balance. Then, slowly, the silver faded from her eyes. The power retreated, and Luna collapsed into Ella's arms, sobbing. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I didn't mean. I just got so angry and the power just came and I couldn't stop it and shoo. It's okay. You're okay. You stopped. That's what matters. Ella held her daughter while she cried, while the crowd whispered, while someone called for healers to tend the injured boy, and while Aiden arrived, summoned by reports of the incident, his expression devastated as he took in the scene. Their eyes met over Luna's head, and Ella saw in his face what she felt in her heart. This was their fault. Their inability to provide stable leadership. Their public fracture. Their decision to prioritize their own damage over their children's needs. Luna had lost control because she was 7 years old and terrified and watching her parents' relationship disintegrate while being told she had to remain perfectly controlled. The hypocrisy was suffocating. They met in Aiden's study that night. The first time they'd been alone since Ella walked out of the council chamber 5 days ago. Luna was sleeping finally, after hours of crying and apologizing and promising she'd never lose control again. Ash was with her, holding his sister's hand, his gentle moonmarked power soothing her emotional wounds. And Ella and Aiden sat across from each other, separated by a desk that felt like a chasm. She could have killed him, Aiden said quietly. Another few seconds. Another surge of power. That boy would be dead. And Luna, his voice broke. Luna would have to live with that. Would become exactly what traditionalists fear. I know. This is my fault. My secrets. My continued deception. I destabilized our family and he stopped. She absorbed that instability. Reflected it. Made it manifest. It's both our faults. Ella's correction was tired. I walked away. Made a public spectacle of our division. Put my needs over theirs. We both failed them. So what do we do? The question hung between them. Impossible. Necessary. I don't know, Ella admitted. I can't go back to what we had. Can't pretend functional partnership is enough when it's clearly not. But I also can't, she gestured helplessly. Can't keep choosing myself when it means our children suffer. Can't prioritize my autonomy over their stability. You shouldn't have to choose between yourself and them. But I do. Because you and I, we can't be partners without me diminishing myself. Can't be honest without you hiding truths. Can't build something real because the foundation is too broken. She met his eyes. And I don't know how to fix that. Don't know if it can be fixed. Aiden was quiet for a long moment. Then, what if we stopped trying to fix it? What? What if we stopped trying to repair what was broken and just let it be broken? Acknowledged that we can't go back. That the partnership we had was built on crisis and maintained through obligation. That it was never really real. His voice steadied. And what if we started over? Completely. Not as mates trying to reconcile, but as two wolves who need to figure out how to co-parent damaged children while respecting each other's autonomy. We've been doing that for 5 years. No, we've been pretending to do that while maintaining the fiction of partnership. While sleeping in the same bed and attending events together and projecting unity that didn't exist. He leaned forward. I'm saying we stop pretending. Fully. Publicly. We're not partners. not lovers. Not mates working toward reconciliation. We're co-parents. That's it. That's all we can be right now. The proposal was devastating and liberating in equal measure. And if we do that, if we officially end the partnership, what does that mean for the pack? Ella asked. For reformation? For everything we've built. It means we lead separately. You focus on Moonmarked advocacy and reformation spread. I focus on internal pack governance. We collaborate on issues affecting both areas. But we don't pretend to be unified leadership. Aiden's expression was resolute despite the pain evident in his eyes. And if that destabilizes the pack, if traditionalists use it as evidence that reformation fails, then we deal with that. But at least we'll be dealing with it honestly instead of through another layer of performance. You give up the unified front? The appearance of stable leadership. I'd give up the lie. His voice was firm. Because Luna almost killed someone today. Because that boy's blood is on our hands as much as hers. Because maintaining a false partnership for political stability isn't worth our children's well-being. Ella stared at him. At the man who'd destroyed her and spent 5 years trying to rebuild what he'd broken. Who was now offering to let it stay broken? To stop fighting for something that maybe couldn't be saved. If we do this, if we officially end the partnership, there's no going back, she said quietly. No pretending it's temporary. No claiming we're working on things. It's done. Completely. Forever. I know. And you're willing to accept that? To give up on us? I'm willing to accept reality. Aiden's eyes were devastated but clear. The reality is, you don't trust me. You have good reason not to trust me. And no amount of time or good behavior or reformation success will change that fundamental fact. I broke something that can't be repaired. And continuing to pretend otherwise is hurting our children. What about what you want? What you need? What I want doesn't matter. Not when our children are suffering. Not when you're diminishing yourself to maintain a fiction. Not when he stopped. Not when keeping me is costing you yourself. The words settled over Ella like a shroud. Because he was right. Maintaining their partnership had required her to constantly compromise. To accept less than she deserved. To choose his comfort over her truth. To be smaller so he could remain large. If we do this, she said finally, we need to do it right. Clear boundaries. No ambiguity. No leaving room for hope that maybe someday no hope, Aiden agreed. Just respectful co-parenting. Collaborative leadership on specific issues. Nothing more. Nothing personal. Nothing that requires you to trust me beyond basic professional cooperation. And if someone else, Ella stopped. If I eventually choose to partner with someone else, to explore other options, you have to accept that. Completely. Without resentment or interference. The muscle in Aiden's jaw ticked. Like Stellan. Like anyone. If I choose to explore what's offered. If I decide that partnership with someone who hasn't destroyed me might be worth considering. You have no say in that. Then the same applies to me, Aiden said, though the words clearly cost him. If I eventually choose to seek partnership elsewhere, to move on, you have to accept that too. The thought of Aiden with someone else made Ella's chest constrict. But she forced herself to nod. Agreed. We're co-parents. Not mates. Not partners. Not anything except two wolves raising children together while maintaining separate lives. Then we're agreed. Aiden stood, extended his hand across the desk. Co-parents. Collaborative leaders on specific issues. Nothing more. Ella stared at his hand. At the finality of what accepting it meant. At the door closing on 5 years of trying to rebuild something that maybe had never been whole to begin with. She took his hand. Shook once. Agreed. The touch lasted exactly 3 seconds. Professional. Appropriate. Completely devoid of the intimacy they'd been pretending to rebuild. When they released, Ella felt free, devastated, relieved, heartbroken. All of it at once. All of it impossible to untangle. "I'll announce it tomorrow," Aiden said. "At the council meeting. That we're ending the partnership. Restructuring leadership. Making it official. And the pack? The traditionalists who'll use this as ammunition. Let them. We'll deal with it. Separately. Honestly. Without pretending unity that doesn't exist." He moved toward the door. Stopped. "Ella?" "Yes. I'm sorry. For all of it. For the original betrayal and everyone that followed. For the secrets and the protection and the fundamental disrespect of treating you like you needed shielding instead of honesty. His voice broke. "I'm sorry. And I know sorry isn't enough. Will never be enough. But it's all I have. I know." Ella's voice was soft. "And I believe you're sorry. Believe you regret it. Believe you'd change it if you could." But Aiden, she met his eyes. "Sorry doesn't fix broken. Sometimes things just stay broken. And we have to learn to live with that." He nodded once, then left. And Ella stood alone in his study, the space where so many decisions had been made, so many crises managed, so many attempts at reconciliation performed, and let herself grieve. Not for what they'd had. That had always been built on crisis, on necessity, on obligation. But for what they'd never have. The partnership chosen freely. The love built on trust. The relationship that could have existed if circumstances had been different. If he'd chosen differently that day in the circle. If she'd been believed from the start. If wounds didn't run so deep that even 5 years couldn't heal them. The announcement came at the next council meeting. Aiden stood before the assembled Wolves council members, interested pack members, visiting observers from other territories, and spoke with a clarity that left no room for misinterpretation. "Queen Ella and I have decided to formally end our partnership. We will continue to co-parent our children. We will collaborate on reformation initiatives and Moonmarked advocacy. But we are no longer mates. No longer unified leaders. No longer maintaining a personal relationship." The hall erupted. Shouts of shock. Demands for explanation. Accusations that this would destroy reformation. Aiden waited for silence. Then continued, "This decision is mutual. Made after careful consideration of what serves our children's well-being and our own autonomy. It does not reflect on reformation's validity. Does not indicate instability in leadership. It simply acknowledges a truth we've been avoiding, that some partnerships cannot be sustained. That some wounds don't heal. That continuing to pretend otherwise causes more damage than honesty." Ella stood from her position in the gallery, not at the council table, no longer holding formal position, and spoke. "I support this decision completely. The Alpha King and I will work together where necessary. But we are not partners. Not personally. And attempting to maintain that fiction for political stability was harming our children and ourselves." "What about succession?" Elder Talia called out. "What about the stability of having clear leadership?" "Luna and Ash remain heirs," Aiden responded. "Their status is unchanged. As for leadership stability, we're implementing a new structure. The Alpha King handles internal pack governance. Queen," he stopped. "Ella handles Moonmarked advocacy and reformation outreach. Council addresses issues requiring both perspectives. It's collaborative without requiring personal partnership. And if you disagree," someone asked, "if the Alpha King and Ella have conflicting positions?" "Then council mediates," Ivy responded from her seat. "That's what we're here for. To provide checks and balances. To ensure no single perspective dominates. It's actually more aligned with Reformation principles than unified leadership was." The logic was sound. But Ella could see the uncertainty. The fear. The traditionalists calculating how to use this fracture. The Reformation supporters worried this would undermine everything they'd built. One more thing, Aiden said. The investigation into the secondary conspiracy continues. Liam and others implicated have been suspended pending full disclosure. We're implementing additional transparency measures to ensure no hidden manipulations continue. That process will be led by, he looked at Ella. By Ella, who has more right than anyone to ensure complete truth. The decision to hand her control of the investigation, to trust her with that authority despite their personal fracture, it surprised Ella. But she nodded acceptance. I'll conduct the investigation publicly, she announced. Every finding shared. Every connection exposed. No more secrets. No more protection. Just truth. Complete and uncomfortable. Even if that truth damages the pack, a traditionalist challenged. Even if it destabilizes what we've built? Especially then, Ella responded. Because stability built on lies isn't real stability. It's just delayed collapse. Better to face truth now and rebuild honestly than pretend everything's fine while rot continues beneath the surface. The meeting continued for hours. Questions, concerns, challenges to the new structure. But through it all, Ella felt something she hadn't felt in 5 years, solid ground. Not happiness, not peace, but solid ground. The knowledge that she was standing in truth instead of performance. That she'd chosen autonomy over comfortable lies. That whatever came next, it would be built on honesty instead of obligation. And if that meant rebuilding alone, if that meant her children growing up with separated parents, then so be it. Some wounds didn't heal. Some partnerships couldn't be saved. And sometimes, accepting that truth was the bravest thing you could do. 3 days after the announcement, Stellan requested a private meeting with Ella. She agreed. Met him in the temple, neutral ground, away from pack politics and watching eyes. He arrived alone. Respectful. Not pushing. Just present. I heard about the announcement, he said. About the formal end of your partnership with the Alpha King. News travels fast. It does when it matters. He settled on the altar steps beside her. How are you handling it? Honestly? I don't know. Part of me feels relieved. Lighter. Like I can finally breathe without the weight of maintaining a false partnership. But part of me, she stopped. Part of me feels like I've failed. Like I should have tried harder. Been stronger. Found a way to make it work. That's guilt talking. Not truth. Stellan's voice was gentle. You tried for 5 years. 5 years of compromising yourself. Accepting less than you deserved. Diminishing your needs to maintain a partnership that required you to be smaller than you are. That's not failure. That's endurance. And choosing to stop enduring, that's wisdom. Or cowardice. Running from difficulty instead of facing it. There's a difference between running from difficulty and walking away from damage, Stellan corrected. Difficulty can be overcome. Damage, especially damage that keeps recurring, that just breaks you in new ways each time. You're not running. You're choosing self-preservation. The words settled over Ella like comfort she hadn't realized she needed. Why are you here? She asked quietly. Really? What do you want from me? Honestly? Stellan met her eyes. I want to know you. The real you. Not the queen performing strength. Not the mother protecting her children. Not the symbol of reformation. Just Ella. Moonmarked wolf who survived impossible things. I want to know what makes you laugh. What scares you. What you dream about when you let yourself dream. What you want from the rest of your life. Why? Because I've spent 40 years watching moonmarked wolves hide. Suppress themselves. Live as half of what they could be. And then I watched you claim your power openly, raise moonmarked children without shame, build a reformation that changed the world. And I thought, he paused. I thought maybe there's hope. For wolves like us. for the possibility of living fully instead of carefully. And you think knowing me will give you that hope? I think knowing you might teach me how to be fully myself. How to stop hiding. How to claim the life I've been too afraid to live. He smiled. And maybe, if you're interested, I can offer you something you haven't had, a partnership built on mutual respect instead of crisis. Built on choice instead of obligation. Built on truth instead of performance. I just ended one partnership. I'm not looking to jump into another. I'm not asking you to. I'm asking if you'd consider, eventually, when you're ready, exploring what's possible. Getting to know each other without pressure. Without expectations. Without the weight of children or pack politics or reformation. Just two moonmarked wolves learning whether they like each other. The offer was tempting. Terrifying. Everything Ella had told herself she shouldn't want. I need time, she said. To process. To investigate the conspiracy. To figure out who I am without partnership defining me. I need all the time you need, Stellan interrupted gently. I'm not going anywhere. Not pressuring. Not demanding. Just offering possibility. If and when you're ready to explore it. He stood, prepared to leave, respecting the boundary she was drawing. Stellan. Ella called before he could go. Yes, thank you. For seeing me as more than symbol. For offering something without demanding immediate decision. For she struggled for words. For treating me like someone with autonomy instead of someone who needs protection or saving or fixing. You're the strongest wolf I've ever met, Stellan said simply. You don't need saving. You just need someone who recognizes that. Then he left. And Ella sat alone in the temple, contemplating possibility for the first time in years. Not certainty. Not plans. Just possibility. And that was enough for now. The investigation into the secondary conspiracy consumed the next 2 weeks. Ella worked methodically. Publicly. Every finding shared at daily updates. Every connection exposed. Every wolf implicated given the chance to confess or present defense. Some confessed immediately. Broke under the weight of guilt they'd been carrying. Detailed exactly how they'd been recruited. Manipulated. Convinced that small compromises served greater good. Others fought. Denied. Claimed evidence was fabricated. Accused Ella of conducting a witch hunt motivated by personal revenge rather than justice. But the evidence was undeniable. Financial records. Communications. Testimony from multiple sources. A pattern of manipulation that had lasted 5 years. That had shaped reformation while controlling it. That had used transparency as cover for continued hidden authority. By the end of the second week, 12 wolves had been formally charged. 8 had confessed. For maintained innocence, but couldn't explain the evidence. And Liam, Aiden's closest friend, the beta who'd helped deliver Luna and Ash, the wolf who'd stood beside them through everything, he sat in a cell awaiting trial. Not in the dungeons where Ella had been tortured, but confined, stripped of authority, facing consequences for 5 years of betrayal. Aiden visited him once. Ella knew because guards reported it. Knew that the conversation lasted less than 5 minutes. Knew that Aiden emerged looking destroyed. She didn't ask what was said. Didn't seek details. Their agreement was clear, co-parents and collaborative leaders on specific issues. Nothing personal. Nothing that required emotional intimacy. So she focused on the investigation. On truth. On ensuring that this time, every layer of manipulation was exposed. And she tried not to think about the fact that Aiden was processing this devastation alone. That his best friend since childhood had betrayed him systematically. That the wolf he'd trusted most had endangered their children. Tried not to care that he was hurting. Failed completely. Because loving someone and being able to partner with them, those were different things. Ella was learning that painful lesson daily. She still loved Aiden. Probably always would. But love wasn't enough. Not when trust was broken. Not when patterns kept repeating. Not when partnership required her to accept less than she deserved. So she loved him from distance. Cared about his pain while maintaining boundaries. Chose herself while acknowledging the cost. It was the hardest thing she'd ever done. Harder than surviving the cell. Harder than being exiled. Harder than nearly dying in childbirth. Because those things had been done to her. This was a choice she was making every single day. The choice to stay separate. To protect herself. To refuse to diminish for the comfort of partnership. Luna was struggling. The incident at the training grounds had shaken her deeply. She'd hurt someone. Nearly killed them. Lost control in exactly the way everyone feared Moonmarked wolves would. She'd been having nightmares. Waking up screaming. Convinced her power was evil. That she was the monster Traditionalists accused her of being. Ella spent hours with her. Talking. Reassuring. Helping her understand that one moment of lost control didn't define her. That having power and choosing not to use it, that was strength, not weakness. But Luna was 7. And 7-year-olds didn't have the capacity to process nuance. They saw in absolutes. Good or bad. Safe or dangerous. Monster or hero. And right now, Luna saw herself as monster. What if I hurt Ash? She asked one night, curled against Ella in the temple. What if I get angry and lose control and hurt him? He's so small. So gentle. What if my power kills him? That won't happen. You don't know that. You can't promise that. Luna's voice was small. Terrified. I didn't mean to hurt that boy. The power it came. And I couldn't stop it. What if next time I can't stop it with Ash? Ella held her daughter tighter. Then we practice. We work on control. We build shields and techniques and safety measures. But Luna, she tipped her daughter's chin up. You stopped. When I asked you to choose, you chose. That's what matters. You have the ability to choose. To control. To decide what your power does. And we're going to make sure you always have that choice. What if I don't want the power? Luna whispered. What if I just want to be normal? Like other wolves? Without this thing inside me that everyone fears. Normal is overrated. Ella smiled despite the pain in her chest. And your power, it's part of you. Like your eyes or your laugh or your stubbornness. You can't separate from it any more than you can separate from yourself. But you can learn to work with it. To make it serve you instead of controlling you. Did you ever want to be normal? Before you knew what you were? The question cut deep. Because yes, Ella had spent years wishing she was normal. Wishing she didn't have silver eyes that needed hiding. Wishing she fit into traditional hierarchies without question. Wishing she was small enough, quiet enough, ordinary enough to avoid notice. I did, Ella admitted. For a long time. But you know what I learned? What? Normal is just another word for invisible. And I was tired of being invisible. Tired of hiding what I was to make others comfortable. Tired of being small when I was meant to be large. She kissed Luna's forehead. You're not meant to be normal, baby. You're meant to be extraordinary. And that's scary. For you and for everyone around you. But it's also beautiful. Powerful. Important. I don't feel extraordinary. I feel scared. Good. Ella's response surprised Luna enough that she looked up. Scared means you understand the responsibility. Means you won't use your power carelessly. Means you'll think before you act. That's wisdom, Luna. And wisdom is more important than power. Luna was quiet for a long moment. Then, Mama? Are you and Papa ever going to be together again? The shift in topic gave Ella whiplash. What? Together. Like before. When you lived in the same room and held hands and kissed sometimes. Are you going to do that again? Ella's throat tightened. I don't think so, baby. Your father and we tried. For a long time. But sometimes people hurt each other too deeply to go back to what they were. And trying to force it just hurts everyone more. But you still love him. I can feel it. Luna's Moonmarked empathy was developing rapidly. You feel sad when you look at him. And he feels sad when he looks at you. If you both love each other and you're both sad, why can't you just, she gestured helplessly, fix it? Because love isn't always enough. Because some damage is too deep to repair. Because Ella stopped. How did you explain this to a 7-year-old? Because your father made choices that broke my trust. And I made choices that protected myself. And now we're in a place where partnership isn't possible. Not honestly. Not without one of us diminishing ourselves. So you chose yourself over him? I chose myself over a partnership that required me to be less than I am. There's a difference. Ella smoothed Luna's hair. And baby, that doesn't mean your father is bad or I'm abandoning anyone. It just means we're better as co-parents than as partners. Better as separate wolves working together than as a false unit pretending to be whole. Ash says Papa cries at night. When he thinks no one's listening. Luna's voice was small. And you cry sometimes too. I hear you. The admission made Ella's chest constrict. Because she had been crying. Late at night when the children were asleep and the temple was quiet. Grieving what they'd lost. What they'd never really had. What might have been possible if circumstances had been different. Your father and I are both sad about how things ended, Ella said carefully. But that doesn't mean we made the wrong choice. Sometimes the right choice still hurts. Sometimes protecting yourself means accepting pain. Sometimes her voice roughened. Sometimes love isn't enough to fix what's broken. Luna burrowed deeper against her. I don't want you to be sad. I know, baby. But I'm okay. The sadness, it's part of healing. Part of processing. Part of learning who I am without partnership defining me. She kissed Luna's head. And eventually, it'll hurt less. We'll all adjust. Find a new normal. Build lives that work even if they're not what we expected. Will you ever love someone else? Someone who doesn't make you sad? The question caught Ella off guard. I don't know. Maybe. Eventually. If I meet someone who respects my autonomy. Who chooses honesty over protection. Who sees my power as strength instead of complication. Like Alpha Stellan? Ella froze. What do you know about Alpha Stellan? I hear wolves talking. They say he wants to be your mate. That he's offering to take Papa's place. Luna looked up with those two perceptive eyes. Would you choose him? I don't know, Ella said honestly. Right now, I'm not choosing anyone. I'm figuring out who I am without partnership. What I want. What I need. And maybe, eventually, I'll consider exploring possibilities. But Luna, she made sure her daughter was looking at her. No one will ever take your father's place. He's your papa. That doesn't change regardless of my relationship status. You and Ash will always have both parents. Always. That's not negotiable. Promise? Promise. Luna relaxed slightly. Okay, but Mama? If you do eventually choose someone, I hope it's someone who makes you smile instead of cry. Because you deserve to smile. The simple wisdom from her 7-year-old daughter made Ella's tears return. Thank you, baby. I hope so too. The next morning, Ella received an unexpected visitor. Not Stellan. Not Aiden. Not anyone from the pack. A woman. Elderly. With the bearing of someone who'd once held significant authority. She introduced herself as Elder Thorn from the High Council, one of the 9 who'd validated Reformation 5 years ago. I'm here unofficially, Thorn said as they settled in the temple's small receiving area. The High Council has been monitoring the situation. The end of your partnership with Alpha King Aiden. The investigation into the secondary conspiracy. The instability it's creating. Ella's spine stiffened. If the High Council has concerns, they can request a formal meeting. I'm happy to present our governance structure and demonstrate that. Relax, child. Thorn's smile was gentle. I'm not here to challenge. I'm here to offer support. And information. What information? The secondary conspiracy you're investigating. It's not limited to your pack. It's regional, coordinated across multiple territories. A network of traditionalists who saw Reformation coming and decided to control it rather than stop it. Thorn pulled out documents. The High Council has been aware for 2 years. We've been conducting our own investigation. Quietly, carefully, gathering evidence. 2 years. Ella's voice rose. You've known about this for 2 years and said nothing? While we were being manipulated. While my children were endangered. We were trying to protect you. No, Ella's power flared. No, you don't get to use that excuse. Protecting me by hiding truth is just another manipulation. Just another way of controlling information while pretending it's for my benefit. Thorn sighed. You're right. And I apologize. The High Council made the same mistake your mate made, assuming you needed protection from difficult truths. Assuming we knew better than to burden you with information you'd eventually need. Why tell me now? Because the investigation is reaching a critical point. Names are about to be exposed. High-ranking wolves from multiple packs. Council members. Alphas. Wolves with significant power who've been using Reformation as cover for continued traditional control. Thorn's expression was grave. And when that happens, when the full scope becomes public, there will be consequences. Upheaval. Possibly violence. The High Council needs to know, will you stand with us? Will you help manage the fallout? What fallout specifically? Civil war. Thorn said it bluntly. Reformed packs against traditionalist packs. Moonmarked wolves being targeted by those who fear exposure. A fracturing of the entire regional structure we've spent centuries building. Unless we can present a united front. Show that Reformation and traditional governance can coexist. Demonstrate strength through diversity rather than uniformity. And you need me for that? We need you to be whole, Thorn corrected. The face of Reformation can't be a fractured queen. Can't be a leader who's publicly separated from her mate while investigating conspiracies that make everyone paranoid. Can't be, she stopped. Can't be someone who looks like she's falling apart even if she's actually choosing herself. The accuracy stung. What are you suggesting? Reconcile with the Alpha King. Publicly. Demonstrate stable leadership. Show that even after profound betrayal, Reformation enables healing and partnership. Become, Thorn paused. Become the symbol everyone needs. Even if it means sacrificing your personal autonomy. No, the word was immediate. Final. No. I will not go back to false partnership for political stability. Will not diminish myself again. Will not teach my daughter that women should sacrifice their needs for the comfort of systems built by men. Even if refusing means Reformation fails, even if it means civil war, even if it means everything you've built collapses. Even then, Ella's voice was steel. Because Reformation built on lies isn't real Reformation. It's just traditional control wearing a progressive mask. And I'd rather see it fail honestly than succeed through deception. You'd let wolves die for your principles? I'd let wolves face consequences for their choices. If traditionalists choose violence over adaptation, that's their choice. Their responsibility, not mine. And I won't sacrifice myself to prevent consequences they've been actively creating. Ella stood. Now if you'll excuse me, Elder Thorn, I have an investigation to complete. One that will expose truth regardless of convenience. Regardless of political stability. Regardless of what the High Council thinks is wise. You're being short-sighted, I'm being honest. Finally. Completely. After 5 years of compromising for stability that was false anyway. After choosing partnership over autonomy. After accepting that my needs mattered less than everyone else's comfort. Ella's power radiated visible light now. I'm done. Done sacrificing. Done diminishing. Done being told that my choices matter less than political strategy. And your children? What about their future? Their future is better served by having a mother who models autonomy than one who models submission. Better served by seeing honest struggle than false unity. Better served by learning that principles matter more than convenience. Ella moved toward the door. Now leave. And tell the High Council, I will not reconcile with Aiden for their comfort. Will not pause the investigation for their timeline. Will not compromise truth for stability. If they can't accept that, if they need a more compliant symbol, then they should find one. Because I'm done being what everyone else needs me to be. Thorne left without another word. But her expression promised this wasn't over. That pressure would increase. That choosing autonomy would cost more than Ella had yet realized. But Ella was done caring. Done calculating costs and benefits. Done making decisions based on what served the greater good instead of what served her truth. For the first time in her life, she was choosing herself. Completely. Without apology. And if that meant war, if that meant Reformation failing, if that meant losing everything, then so be it. Some things were worth fighting for. And autonomy real. Genuine autonomy to make choices without being manipulated or protected or diminished, that was worth any cost. That night, Aiden appeared at the temple. Ella almost turned him away. But something in his expression, desperation mixed with resignation, made her relent. 5 minutes, she said. That's all. He nodded. Stepped inside. Looked around the space she'd been living in. Simple. Spare. But hers. Elder Thorne visited me too, he said without preamble. Told me the High Council wants us to reconcile. To present united leadership. To sacrifice our personal truth for political stability. And I told her to go to hell. His smile was bitter. Politely. With all the diplomatic language expected of an alpha king. But essentially, go to hell. Ella's eyebrows rose. You refuse the High Council? I refuse their manipulation. Their attempt to use fear of consequences to force us into choices that serve them instead of us. He met her eyes. I failed you in so many ways, Ella. But I won't fail you in this. Won't pressure you to reconcile for political convenience. Won't put Reformation above your autonomy. Won't make the same mistake again. Why are you telling me this? Because I need you to know I support your choice. Completely. Whatever you decide, whether that's staying separate or eventually exploring partnership with Stellan or anything else, I support it. Not because I've stopped loving you, but because I finally understand that love without respect is just another form of control. The words settled over Ella like something precious. Hard one. Genuine. Thank you, she said quietly. There's more. Aiden's expression turned grave. The High Council isn't the only pressure coming. Traditionalist pacts are organizing. Using our separation as proof that Reformation fails. That Moonmarked leadership destabilizes. That we need to return to traditional hierarchies. They're planning, he stopped. They're planning a challenge. A formal one. Against your right to lead. Against your children's right to inherit. Against everything we've built. When? 3 weeks. At the regional summit. They're going to present evidence that Moonmarked wolves are too unstable for leadership. That Luna's loss of control proves it. That our separation demonstrates it. That Reformation has weakened the region instead of strengthening it. And if they succeed, then everything changes. Reformation gets rolled back. Moonmarked protections get revoked. Your children, his voice broke. Your children get declared unfit for succession. And you, he couldn't finish. I get removed from any position of authority, Ella completed. Possibly exiled again. Possibly worse. Yes. So we have 3 weeks to prove them wrong. To demonstrate that Moonmarked leadership works. That reformation strengthens. That separation doesn't equal failure. We have 3 weeks to decide if we're willing to fight. Because this won't be a simple debate. This will be war. Political. Possibly physical. And it will cost. Aiden's eyes were devastated. It will cost everything. Ella looked at him. At the man she'd loved and lost and couldn't save. At the father of her children. At the king who'd finally learned to respect her autonomy even when it hurt him. Then we fight, she said simply. Separately. Honestly. Without pretending unity we don't have. But we fight. Because some things are worth any cost. And our children's future, that's worth everything. Together. His question was tentative. Careful. Not asking for reconciliation. Just partnership in this one thing. Together, Ella agreed. As co-parents. As collaborative leaders on this specific issue. As two wolves who love their children more than they fear consequences. I can work with that. Good. Because in 3 weeks, we're going to prove that love doesn't require partnership. That strength doesn't require unity. That reformation works precisely because it values autonomy over conformity. And if we lose, then we lose honestly. Fighting for what's right. Teaching our children that principles matter more than victory. Demonstrating that some things are worth dying for. I'd rather not die, Aiden said dryly. Me either. So let's win instead. 2 days before the summit, Stellan arrived with information that changed everything. Ella met him in the council chamber, public, witnessed, no room for misinterpretation. Aiden was there too, along with Ivy, the new council, and guards. The Traditionalists aren't just challenging reformation, Stellan said without preamble. He spread documents across the table. They're planning an execution. If they win the challenge, if they prove Moonmarked leadership is unstable, they're going to demand Luna and Ash be put down. Immediately. Publicly. As proof that the region rejects dangerous bloodlines. The words hit like a physical blow. Ella felt her power surge. Felt rage so pure it turned her vision silver. They want to kill my children. They want to eliminate the threat they represent. Ensure no Moonmarked heirs can ever claim power. Make an example that prevents any future. Stellan stopped at the look on her face. Yes, they want to kill your children. Over my dead body. Ella's voice was calm. Deadly. That's what they're counting on. You losing control. Proving their point that Moonmarked wolves are too dangerous. They want you to rage. To threaten. To demonstrate exactly the instability they're accusing you of. Then what do I do? The question came out broken. Because Ella's every instinct was screaming to take her children and run. To fight. To burn down every wolf who dare threaten Luna and Ash. To prove exactly how dangerous she could be when her young were threatened. You stay calm, Aiden said quietly. His hands were shaking, the only sign of the terror he was feeling. You demonstrate control. You prove that even when faced with the worst threat imaginable, you choose reason over rage. Justice over vengeance. They're threatening our children and you want me to be reasonable? I want you to be smart. Aiden's gold eyes met hers. Because they're right about one thing, if you lose control, if you give them evidence of instability, they win. Luna and Ash die. And every Moonmarked wolf in the region becomes a target. Ella knew he was right. Hated that he was right. There's more, Stellan said. The leader of the challenge, the one coordinating all of this, it's someone you know. Someone close. Who? Stellan slid a final document across the table. A name that made Ella's blood freeze. Saris. Stellan's own sister. The woman who'd visited Ella at the temple. Who'd seemed sympathetic. Who'd claimed to want to live freely as Moonmarked. She's been playing both sides, Stellan said, his voice heavy with betrayal. pretending to support Reformation while feeding information to traditionalists, using her moonmarked status to gain your trust. Planning, he stopped. Planning to testify that moonmarked wolves can't be trusted. That even she 40 years of hiding her power couldn't control it reliably. That giving us authority is suicide for the packs. Your own sister. My own sister. Pain flickered across Stellan's face. I didn't want to believe it. Spent weeks investigating. But the evidence, he gestured at the documents. She's been the architect all along. Marcus. The secondary conspiracy. Even Margaret's assassination attempt, Sarah's coordinated all of it. Used others as tools while staying invisible. Why? Ella demanded. Why work against her own kind? Because she's afraid. Spent 40 years terrified of her power. Convinced that moon-marked wolves are dangerous. That hiding was the only way to survive. And your existence, your open claiming of power, it terrifies her. Makes her feel exposed. Vulnerable. So she's trying to eliminate the threat you represent. Stellan's voice hardened. By eliminating you. And your children. And any possibility of moon-marked wolves ever being safe. Aiden spoke quietly. If she testifies, if a moon-marked wolf argues against her own kind, it's over. The traditionalists win. Luna and Ash. Don't. Ella cut him off. Couldn't hear him finish that sentence. Just don't. She looked at the documents. At the evidence of systematic betrayal. At the carefully constructed trap designed to destroy her children. And she made a decision. I'm withdrawing from the summit. Her voice was steady. I'm taking Luna and Ash and leaving Pact territory. Disappearing. If I'm not there to challenge, they can't demand execution. Can't make examples. Can't, they'll hunt you, Stellan interrupted. Declare you rogue. Send enforcers. You'll spend the rest of your life running. And Luna and Ash will grow up as fugitives. Hunted. Unsafe. Never able to claim their birthright. Better alive and fugitive than dead and vindicated. Is it? Aiden's question was soft. Because that's not the lesson we want to teach them. That running is the answer when systems fail. That hiding is safer than standing. That fear wins. I'm not teaching them anything if they're dead. And you're teaching them nothing valuable if they survive by running. Aiden's composure cracked. Ella, I know you're terrified. I'm terrified. The thought of losing them, his voice broke completely. But running means they never get to be themselves. Never get to live openly. Never get to change the world the way you have. They become exactly what Saris wants, moon-marked wolves who hide. Who diminish themselves. Who live in fear. I don't care about symbolism right now. I care about survival. Then survive by winning. By standing. By proving that even when threatened with the worst, you choose courage over fear. He moved closer. We can win this. Together. But only if you're willing to fight instead of run. Ella looked at him. At Stellan. At the council members, watching with varying expressions of fear and determination. If I stay, if I fight, and we lose, my children die. That's the cost of your courage. If you run, Reformation dies. Every moon-marked wolf becomes a target. Everything we've built collapses. Aiden's voice was gentle despite the words. There's no safe choice here. Just, which principles do we die for? If dying becomes necessary. The calculation was brutal. Impossible. A choice no parent should ever have to make. But Ella had learned something crucial over the past 5 years. Some choices couldn't be avoided. Could only be faced with as much courage as you could gather. If we do this, if we fight, I need complete honesty. No more protection. No more secrets. No more deciding what I can handle. She looked at Aiden. Everything. Every piece of information. Every risk. Every possibility. No matter how terrible. Agreed. And I lead the defense. My children. My testimony. My strategy. Agreed. And if we win, when we win, things don't go back. We stay separated. We maintain boundaries. We don't let victory erase the reasons we chose autonomy. Aiden's expression flickered with pain, but he nodded. Agreed. Ella took a breath. Then we fight. Together, but separate. Honest, but boundaried. And we prove that love doesn't require partnership. That strength doesn't require unity. That moonmarked wolves can lead without becoming the monsters everyone fears. Together, Aiden echoed. Together, Stellan added. My sister's betrayal, I'll testify against her. Expose her manipulation. Prove that not all moonmarked wolves fear themselves. 2 days, Ella said. We have 2 days to prepare. To build a defense that can't be broken. To demonstrate that even when faced with execution, we choose reason over rage. She looked at the assembled wolves. At the council that had supported her. At the reforms they'd built. At the future hanging in the balance. 2 days, she repeated. Let's make them count. The summit began with tradition, formal challenges, witnesses, evidence presented in careful order. Saris testified first. Calm. Controlled. Her moon-marked eyes, silver like Ella's, projected authority and reason. I've hidden my power for 40 years, she told the assembled packs. Not from shame. From necessity. Because I've seen what happens when moon-marked wolves lose control. I've felt the pull of that power. The way it responds to emotion. The way rage becomes fire becomes destruction. She gestured to Luna, sitting between Ella and Aiden. That child nearly killed a packmate. 7 years old and already unable to control what she carries. And you want her to inherit? Want her to lead? Want to trust that adolescence, with all its emotional chaos, won't trigger something catastrophic. The traditionalist packs murmured agreement. Even some Reformation supporters looked uncertain. Queen Ella claims control, Saris continued. Claims her power serves instead of dominates. But I ask you, how long until emotion overwhelms reason? How long until threat to her children triggers the same rage her daughter showed? How long until we're all ashes because we valued idealism over safety? She turned to face Ella directly. I don't testify from hate. I testify from 40 years of experience. Moonmarked wolves are dangerous. Not because we're evil. Because we're powerful without the centuries of conditioning that teaches control. We're children with weapons. And giving us authority is suicide. The words landed devastatingly. A moonmarked wolf arguing against her own kind. 40 years of hiding presented as wisdom rather than fear. Ella wanted to rage. Wanted to prove every accusation right by demonstrating exactly how dangerous she could be. Instead, she stayed seated. Hands folded. Face calm. Breathing through the fury. Aiden's hand found hers under the table. Brief. Supportive. Then released. Maintaining boundaries even in crisis. The challenge proceeded. Traditionalists presented evidence. Luna's loss of control. Ella's public separation from Aiden. Proof of instability. The conspiracy that had operated for 5 years under Reformation's nose. Every failure magnified. Every success minimized. Then they made their demand. Luna and Ash declared unfit for succession. Ella removed from authority. Moonmarked protections revoked. Return to traditional hierarchies where dangerous bloodlines could be properly controlled. And if Queen Ella refuses? Elder Thorne asked from the High Council's position. The lead traditionalist, an alpha named Garrick, smiled coldly. Then we invoke ancient law. Trial by combat. If she believes moonmarked control is real, let her prove it. Fight without her power. Demonstrate that she's more than the threat she carries. That's barbaric, Ivy protested. That's law, Garrick countered. Old law. but still valid. If she wins without using Moonmarked power, we accept reformation continues. Her children remain heirs. If she loses, he shrugged. The region decides what happens to dangerous bloodlines. Meaning execution. Meaning Luna and Ash would die if Ella lost. I accept, Ella said before anyone could object. Ella, no, Aiden started. I accept the challenge. Trial by combat. No Moonmarked power. Just she stood. Just a mother protecting her children. That enough for you? Garrick's smile widened. More than enough. The combat was scheduled for dawn, giving Ella 12 hours to prepare. She spent them with her children. Luna cried. Mama, don't. Please don't. I don't want you to get hurt because of me. This isn't because of you, baby. It's because of wolves who fear change. Who'd rather destroy difference than learn from it. Ella held her daughter close. And I'm going to win. Going to prove that power with control is strength, not threat. What if you don't? Ash's quiet voice. What if you lose? Then your father will protect you. Take you somewhere safe. Raise you to understand, her voice caught. To understand that some things are worth fighting for. Even when fighting means risking everything. I don't want you to risk everything, Ash whispered. I want you to stay. I want that too. So I'm going to win. She pulled him close. I'm going to win and come back, and we're going to keep building this impossible life we've made. Together. She held them both, memorizing the feeling. Just in case. Later, Aiden found her in the temple. You don't have to do this. We can run. Take the children, and no, Ella's voice was firm. We talked about this. Running teaches them fear wins. Standing teaches them courage matters. Standing might get you killed. Maybe. But running definitely kills reformation. Kills protection for every Moonmarked wolf. Kills the future where Luna and Ash can be themselves openly. She turned to face him. I can't live with that. Can't teach them that survival matters more than principle. Even if principle costs your life? Especially then. She moved closer. Aiden, if I don't survive, don't. If I don't survive, promise me something. Promise me you'll tell them the truth. All of it. The punishment. The conspiracy. The lies and the damage and the 5 years we spent trying to rebuild from broken pieces. Promise me they'll know that love isn't enough. That partnership requires trust. That some wounds don't heal. Why would I? Because I don't want them to make our mistakes. Don't want Luna to accept less than she deserves. Don't want Ash to diminish himself for someone else's comfort. Promise me you'll teach them that autonomy matters. That choosing yourself isn't selfish. That some things are worth walking away from. I promise. His voice was rough. But you're going to survive. You're going to win. And you're going to teach them yourself. Maybe. She reached up, touched his face. But just in case, thank you. For finally learning to respect my autonomy. For supporting my choice to fight. For being the co-parent they need even when partnership isn't possible. Ella, she kissed him. Brief. Gentle. Goodbye and love and regret all tangled together. That's not for us, she clarified. That's for who we were. Before everything broke. Before we learned that love without trust is just pretty words. I know. He held her. Just for a moment. Then released. Win. Please. Just win. I'll try. Dawn came too fast. The combat circle was drawn. Witnesses assembled. Luna and Ash stood with Aiden, their father holding them close, his face carved from stone. Ella stepped into the circle. Garrick entered from the opposite side. Larger. Stronger. Male alpha in his prime against a Moonmarked female who'd been explicitly forbidden from using her power. The High Council observed, ready to enforce the terms. Ready to declare victory or defeat. Ready to determine whether reformation survived or died here. Garrick smiled. No power. That was the agreement. If you use even a flicker of Moonmarked abilities, you forfeit. Your children die. Understood. Understood. Then let's see if you can fight without the thing that makes you special. Let's see what you are when you're just. He lunged without warning. Ordinary. This is the darkest hour, where everything Ella's built stands on the edge of a knife. She's fighting without her power, without her greatest strength, with her children's lives hanging in the balance. Can she win? Should she win? Or is this the moment where standing costs everything? Ella dodged the first strike. Barely. Garrick was fast, powerful, everything an alpha male in prime condition should be. He fought with centuries of traditional training, brutal efficiency, no wasted movement. Ella fought with desperation. She'd trained, of course she'd trained. 5 years of reformation hadn't erased basic combat skills. But Garrick outweighed her by 80 pounds, had reach and strength advantages that couldn't be overcome by technique alone. The first blow that connected sent her sprawling. Ribs cracked. Pain exploded white-hot. Luna screamed. Aiden held her back. Don't interfere. If anyone interferes, she forfeits. Ella forced herself up, tasted blood, felt her moon-marked power surging, begging to be used. To heal the ribs, to enhance her speed, to level the playing field. She shoved it down, locked it away, fought purely as wolf and woman. Garrick circled. You're weak without your power. Ordinary. This is what you really are, soft. Fragile. Prey pretending to be predator. He attacked again. Ella countered, used his momentum against him, threw him off balance. Got inside his guard. Landed 3 quick strikes to vulnerable points. Not enough to stop him, but enough to prove she wasn't helpless. The fight continued. Minutes that felt like hours. Ella took more hits than she gave, each one leaving new damage, new pain, new evidence that she was outmatched. But she didn't fall, didn't quit, didn't use her power even when using it would have ended this in seconds. Because this wasn't about winning through strength. It was about proving control. Proving that even when threatened with death, even when her children's lives hung in balance, she could choose restraint over rage. Garrick was breathing hard now. Frustrated. Just use your power. Prove what you are. Show everyone the monster hiding under rational control. No, Ella's voice was steady despite the blood. Despite the cracked ribs and split lip and exhaustion. This is what I am. Wolf. Mother. Queen who chooses principle over convenience. And that's enough. She didn't see the final attack coming. Garrick's fist caught her temple. The world spun. She went down. Hard. Couldn't get up. Body wouldn't obey. Vision tunneling. Through the gray closing in, she heard Luna screaming. Heard Aiden's voice, rough with terror. Heard the Traditionalists celebrating victory. Then another voice. Stellan. She's still conscious. The fight isn't over until she submits or falls unconscious. Those are the rules. Ella clung to that. To consciousness by pure will. Forced her eyes open. Forced her body to move. Garrick stood over her. Submit. It's over. You've proven your point. Now submit before I have to. No, she pushed to her knees. Then her feet. Swaying but standing. Not done. Not while I can still choose to stand. This is insane. You can't win. Don't need to win. Just need to not quit. Blood ran into her eyes. She wiped it away. That's the lesson. Not that moon-marked wolves are invincible. That we're stubborn. Principled. Willing to die for what we believe, but unwilling to live in fear. She raised her fists. Broken. Bloody. But raised. Garrick stared. Then something shifted in his expression. You actually mean it. You'd die rather than submit. Rather die standing than live kneeling. Even for your children? Especially for them. Because what kind of life would they have if I taught them that survival matters more than principle? That fear should dictate choices? That being ordinary is safer than being extraordinary. She took a step forward. Pain screamed through her body, but she ignored it. I'm teaching them that some things are worth dying for. And autonomy, the right to be fully yourself without apology, that's worth everything. Garrick lowered his hands. You're insane. No, I'm moonmarked. There's a difference. Ella smiled through split lips. And you just proved my point. Proved that even without power, even beaten and broken, I can choose restraint. Can choose principle. Can choose to stand when falling would be easier. She swayed, fell to one knee, but forced herself back up. So what's it going to be? She asked. You going to kill a wolf who won't fight back? Who's choosing to stand without even using her greatest strength? Going to execute someone who's proven everything you claimed to fear was false? Silence. Complete silence from the assembled packs. Then Elder Thorn stood. The High Council has seen enough. Queen Ella has demonstrated control beyond question. Has proven that Moonmarked power can be restrained even under extreme duress. Has shown that principle guides her choices more than rage or fear. She turned to the Traditionalists. The challenge is answered. Not through victory, but through demonstration of character. Queen Ella and her children retain their positions. Reformation continues. And any pack that continues to claim Moonmarked wolves are too dangerous will have to explain why a mother fighting for her children's lives showed more restraint than any of us would have. Garrick looked at his fellow Traditionalists. At the wolves who demanded this challenge. At the evidence of his own brutality against someone who'd refused to fight back with full strength. The challenge is withdrawn, he said quietly. Defeat evident. Not in combat, but in moral standing. Ella collapsed. Couldn't hold herself up anymore. Darkness took her before she hit the ground. She woke to Luna and Ash pressed against her sides. To Aiden hovering nearby. To healers working on her injuries. Mama. Luna's tear-stained face. You're awake. You scared us so much. I'm okay, baby. We're okay. Ella's voice was hoarse. We're all okay. You won, Ash said quietly. Not by fighting. By standing. By being brave even when you were scared. That's the lesson. Being brave doesn't mean not being scared. It means standing anyway. She pulled them close despite the pain. And you're going to remember that. Both of you. When your Moonmarked power feels too big or too scary or too dangerous, you're going to remember that control is a choice. Every single time. Aiden cleared his throat. The High Council issued a formal decree. Full protection for Moonmarked wolves. Recognition of your authority. Expansion of Reformation to all territories under their jurisdiction. We won. The words felt surreal. You won. His correction was gentle. By proving that everything they feared was wrong. That even broken and bleeding, you could choose restraint. That Moonmarked power serves the wolf, not the other way around. I couldn't have done it without knowing you'd protect them. If I fell. She couldn't finish. But you didn't fall. You stood. And you changed everything. Aiden smiled. Again. This is where it turned. Where Ella proved that power with principle is unstoppable. Where she demonstrated that choosing restraint was harder and braver than choosing rage. The fight isn't over. But the battle is won. 3 months after the summit, the Northern Pack gathered for a different kind of ceremony. Not a coronation. Not a trial. Not a challenge. A choosing. Luna stood at the altar in the temple, 8 years old now, more confident after watching her mother's courage. Ash beside her, still small but growing stronger daily. And before them, the entire pack. Reformed and traditionalist alike. Witnesses to what came next. Ella stood to the side, healed from the combat but bearing new scars. Visible reminders of the price she'd paid. Proof that standing sometimes meant bleeding. Aiden stood opposite her. Separate. Respectful of the boundaries they'd maintained even through crisis. Even through victory. Ivy, as head council member, spoke. We gathered to acknowledge a truth 5 years delayed. That Ella and Aiden are not partners. Not mates. Not unified leadership. They are co-parents. Collaborative allies. Separate wolves who work together when necessary but live autonomously. The formal acknowledgement felt both liberating and final. This changes nothing about succession, Ivy continued. Luna and Ash remain heirs. Their parents' relationship status doesn't affect their right to inherit. But it acknowledges what is rather than pretending what isn't. She turned to Ella and Aiden. Do you both accept this designation? Co-parents without partnership? Allies without romance? Separate but collaborative? I do, Ella said clearly. I do, Aiden echoed. Pain evident but acceptance genuine. Then let it be recorded. The Northern Pack recognizes autonomous leadership. Values truth over comfort. Chooses honesty over performance. The pack erupted in mixed reactions. Some cheered, relieved to finally have truth acknowledged. Others looked uncertain, still clinging to the hope of reconciliation. But the decision was made. Official. Final. After the ceremony, Stellan approached. He'd been present throughout, testifying against his sister, supporting reformation, offering Ella space to heal without pressure. How do you feel? He asked. Free. Ella's answer surprised her with its honesty. I finally feel free. Not happy. Not healed completely. But free to choose what comes next without obligation or guilt dictating the decision. And what comes next? She looked at him. At this Moonmarked alpha who'd offered partnership without demands. Respect without diminishment. Possibility without pressure. I don't know yet, she admitted. I'm still figuring out who I am without partnership defining me. What I want beyond survival and children and reformation. But she smiled. I'm open to finding out. When I'm ready. Then I'll keep waiting. However long it takes. Why? The question was genuine. Why invest time in something that might never happen? Why wait for a woman who can't promise anything? Because you're worth waiting for. Because watching you fight at that summit, watching you choose principle over survival, restraint over rage, standing over falling, he stopped. That's when I knew. Not just that I wanted partnership with you, but that I wanted to be the kind of wolf who deserved partnership with someone like you. The honesty was devastating. Beautiful. Everything Ella had needed and never received. Ask me again in 6 months, she said softly. When I've had time to just be myself. Without crisis. Without fighting. Just existing as Ella. Moonmarked queen who's learning what she wants instead of just responding to what's demanded. 6 months, Stellan agreed. I'll ask again in 6 months. That evening, Ella and Aiden met one final time in his study. Not for pack business. Not for the children. Just closure. I'm proud of you, Aiden said quietly. For choosing yourself. For maintaining boundaries even when I made it difficult. For teaching our children that autonomy matters more than convenient partnership. It wasn't easy. No. But it was right. And his voice roughened. I'm sorry. For all of it. For the original betrayal and everyone that followed. For not trusting you with truth. For protecting you instead of respecting you. For taking 5 years to learn what I should have understood from the beginning. I know. And I believe your sorry is genuine. But Aiden, she met his eyes. Sorry doesn't fix broken. Some things just stay broken. And we have to build around them instead of constantly trying to repair what can't be repaired. So this is it? Truly? No possibility of no possibility, she confirmed gently. Not because I don't love you. I probably always will. But because love without trust is just pain wearing a romantic mask. And I'm done with pain disguised as love. What if I could earn your trust back? Given enough time? I don't think you can. Because the pattern is too established. Every time crisis hits, your instinct is to protect me through secrets. To decide what I can handle. To choose your judgment over my autonomy. And she searched for words. That's who you are. Not malicious. Not intentionally controlling. Just conditioned by centuries of alpha training that says protecting is loving. But I need a partner who understands that trusting is loving. That honesty is loving. That respecting my right to make informed choices, even difficult ones, that's love. And you think Stellan can give you that? I don't know. But I'm willing to find out. When I'm ready. When I've spent enough time alone to know what I actually want instead of just reacting to what I've been given. Aiden was quiet for a long moment. Then I hope you find it. Real partnership. Built on mutual respect and complete honesty. Built on choice instead of crisis. You deserve that. Deserve someone who sees your autonomy as sacred instead of something to manage. So do you, Ella said. You deserve someone who can trust you without 5 years of betrayal coloring every interaction. Who can build something new instead of constantly trying to repair something broken. Who can love you without the weight of what you did to me hanging over everything. Maybe someday. Maybe. She stood. Extended her hand. Thank you. For finally learning to respect boundaries. For supporting my choices even when they hurt you. For being the father our children need even when partnership wasn't possible. He took her hand. Held it briefly. Thank you for not giving up on me completely. For co-parenting with grace. For showing me what real strength looks like. For his voice broke. For everything. They released. Final. Complete. Goodbye, Aiden. Goodbye, Ella. She walked out of his study. Out of the manor. Into the night air that felt like possibility instead of performance. Behind her, the man she'd loved and lost and couldn't save. Ahead, a future she'd finally chosen freely. And for the first time in years, maybe ever, Ella felt whole. Not because wounds had healed, but because she'd learned to carry them without letting them define her. Learned to love without diminishing herself. Learned to stand alone before standing with someone else. She was Moonmarked. Mother. Queen. Survivor. And she was enough. All by herself. Completely. Whatever came next, partnership or solitude, love or autonomy, it would be her choice. Made freely. Without obligation or crisis forcing her hand. And that was victory. The real kind. The kind that lasted. This is resolution. Not reunion. Not fixing what was broken. But acceptance. Ella and Aiden have found peace. Separate. Honest. Respectful of what they can't be while honoring what they are. Co-parents who tried and couldn't make it work. And that's okay. Some stories don't end in reconciliation. They end in growth. 6 months later. Ella stood in the gardens at dawn, her gardens, the ones that had witnessed every transformation. Where she'd hidden after the first exile. Where she'd processed devastating truths. Where she'd slowly learned that survival meant more than just breathing. Luna appeared first, running through the morning mist. 9 years old and already showing signs of the alpha she'd become. Strong. Confident. Learning control daily. Mama. Ash mastered the healing technique. He fixed my scraped knee without even trying. Pride radiated from her voice. Ash followed more slowly. Still small. Still struggling with physical limitations. But his Moonmarked power had grown exponentially. Gentle. Precise. Exactly what the world needed. That's wonderful, baby. Ella pulled them both close. You're both becoming exactly who you're meant to be. Because you taught us, Ash said quietly. Taught us that power is choice. That being different is strength. That standing matters more than winning. You taught yourselves. Ella smiled. I just tried not to mess you up too badly. You succeeded, Luna said solemnly. Then grinned. Mostly. They spent the morning together. Training. Laughing. Being family in the way they'd learned to be honest, messy real. Aiden joined them for lunch. Easy now. Comfortable. He'd started seeing someone, a beta wolf named Charlotte, who valued his reformed leadership and didn't carry the weight of their shared trauma. Ella had met her. Liked her. Felt genuine happiness that he was building something new. How are the regional reforms? Ella asked over food the children had helped prepare. Expanding faster than predicted. 17 more packs have requested guidance. The High Council is discussing making Reformation principles standard rather than optional. Pride evident in his voice. What you built, it's changing everything. We built, Ella corrected. Couldn't have done it alone. But you could have. That's what the summit proved. You're strong enough to stand alone. To fight alone. To win alone. He met her eyes. I'm just grateful you chose to collaborate even when partnership wasn't possible. The children finished eating and ran off to play, leaving the adults in comfortable silence. Stellan's asking again today, isn't it? Aiden said. 6 months. Yes. Ella's answer was calm. He's been patient. Respectful. Never pressuring. Just present when I needed support and absent when I needed space. What are you going to say? I don't know yet. Part of me wants to say yes. To explore what partnership without trauma might look like. To see if I can build something healthy with someone who hasn't destroyed me. She paused. But part of me worries I'm still not ready. Still not healed enough. Still too likely to bring damage into something new. You're allowed to take more time. Allowed to say not yet. Allowed to stay autonomous as long as you need. I know. But I also know, she stopped. I also know I can't hide forever. Can't use healing as excuse to avoid risk. At some point, I have to choose. Do I want partnership or do I want solitude? And if I want partnership, I have to be brave enough to try. Even knowing it might fail. Even knowing I might get hurt again. What does your gut say? Ella closed her eyes. Listen to the truth beneath fear and doubt and trauma. My gut says try. Says Stellan has earned a chance. Says I've spent 6 months learning who I am alone, and now it's time to discover who I could be with someone who respects that autonomy. Then try. Aiden's voice was genuine. And if it doesn't work, if partnership isn't what you need, you'll know. You'll survive. You'll keep building this extraordinary life you've created. When did you get so wise? When I finally learned to listen instead of protect. To trust instead of control. To respect your choices even when they don't include me. He stood. I should go. Charlotte and I are visiting the Western Territories. Checking on their Reformation implementation. Give her my regards. I will. He paused. Ella? Thank you. For showing me what real love looks like. For teaching me that respecting someone's autonomy is more important than keeping them. For, his voice caught. For being the kind of wolf I could never deserve, but will always be grateful to have known. You deserve good things, Aiden. You've done the work. Changed fundamentally. Become the leader, the man you were always capable of being. Don't let what we couldn't be prevent you from building what you can be. With Charlotte or whoever comes next. He nodded, then left. And Ella sat alone in her gardens, contemplating the choice ahead. Stellan arrived at sunset. As promised. Exactly 6 months since their last conversation about partnership. Hello, Ella. Hello, Stellan. They walked through the gardens together. Comfortable. Easy. Without the weight that had always existed with Aiden. 6 months, he said finally. I promised I'd ask again. So I'm asking, are you ready? To explore what partnership might look like? To see if two moon-marked wolves can build something healthy together. Ella took a breath. I'm ready to try. Not ready to promise anything. Not ready to commit to outcomes. But ready to try. To see what's possible when partnership is chosen freely instead of forged in crisis. That's all I'm asking. Just try. See if we like each other beyond respect and shared bloodline. See if partnership enhances your life instead of diminishing it. See if he smiled. See if maybe we can build something worth keeping. And if we can't? If trying proves partnership isn't what I need, then we part as friends, as allies in reformation, as two wolves who tried and learned something valuable even if the outcome wasn't what we hoped. The honesty was everything. No pressure. No demands. No expectation that she sacrifice autonomy for partnership. Then yes, Ella said. Let's try. 1 year later. Ella stood at the regional summit, not as defendant or challenge. As honored speaker. Symbol of Reformation's success. Beside her, Stellan. Partner now. Mate in all but formal claiming. Building something healthy. Real. Based on mutual respect and complete honesty. They weren't perfect. Had arguments. Disagreements. Moments of friction. But they chose each other daily. Chose honesty over comfort. Chose respect over control. Chose partnership that enhanced rather than diminished. And it worked. Beautifully. Imperfectly. Humanly. Luna and Ash thrived. Learning from both their mother's new partnership and their father's reformed one. Learning that love could look different. That family could be complicated. That brokenness could be beautiful when handled with honesty. As Ella looked across the assembled packs, 63 territories now reformed, more considering it, she understood something crucial. The lie coming out hadn't fixed anything. The truth arriving too late hadn't healed wounds. The years of trying to rebuild broken partnership hadn't succeeded. But those failures had taught her something more valuable than easy reconciliation, that she was enough. Alone. That autonomy mattered more than partnership. That choosing herself wasn't selfish, it was survival. And once she'd learned that, once she'd stood alone and discovered she was whole, then she could choose partnership. Not from need. Not from obligation. But from genuine desire. She'd lost Aiden. But she'd found herself. And that was victory. The real kind. Listen to me one last time. This story was never about fixing what was broken. It was about learning when to stop trying. When to accept that some wounds don't heal. That some partnerships can't be saved. Ella and Aiden loved each other. But love wasn't enough. Trust was broken too deeply. Patterns repeated too consistently. So they did the bravest thing. They let go. Chose co-parenting over partnership. Chose honesty over performance. Chose themselves. And in letting go, they both found something better. Not easy. Not perfect. But real. Here's my question for you. Have you ever loved someone you couldn't be with? Have you ever had to choose yourself over partnership? Have you ever learned that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is walk away? Drop a comment. Tell me your story. And if this journey touched you, if Ella's choice to prioritize autonomy resonated, if Aiden's growth felt real, if their ending felt right even though it hurt, then subscribe to Shayla's Romance Library. Because we tell the stories that don't always end in reunion. The ones that end in growth. The ones that prove love isn't always enough, but choosing yourself always is. Thank you for taking this journey. For believing Ella deserved autonomy. For hoping Aiden would learn. For trusting that some stories are more powerful when they don't end in reconciliation. You are enough. Just like Ella. All by yourself. Remember that. Shayla's Romance Library, where broken things become beautiful. Where truth matters more than comfort. where choosing yourself is always the right answer.